The moment I read the text from my mother, my heart sank. Everyone's staying home because of the ice storm. Christmas dinner is canceled. Stay safe. Those few words seemed like a caring gesture from my mom, Meredith, as Nashville winters can indeed be unpredictable. I put down my phone and tried to accept the disappointment. Little did I know that this seemingly simple message would unravel decades of hidden truths and reveal how far my family had gone to shut me out of their perfect world. My name is Evelyn, and I'm 32, an accountant who's always been labeled the serious one in the lively Carmichael family, compared to my younger sister, Sophie, the bubbly, effortlessly adored favorite. I always felt like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Growing up, our parents, Meredith and Charles, praised Sophie's every move, from her dramatic flair to her spontaneous lifestyle. Meanwhile, my dedication to school, my steady job, and my attempts to be responsible were treated as dull obligations rather than points of pride. That Christmas morning, I brewed hot chocolate, curled up with a blanket, and tried to embrace the quiet day alone, consoling myself with old holiday movies. But around mid-afternoon, something caught my eye while I scrolled through Instagram. A photo posted by my cousin Lily with the caption, "Family Christmas at Sophie's, so blessed to have everyone together." My blood ran cold. There, gathered around Sophie's perfectly decorated dining table, were every person who mattered in my life. My parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, even Grandma Margaret, all smiling brightly in festive sweaters. The clear blue sky outside their windows proved there had never been an ice storm. There had never even been a plan to cancel Christmas. The text I received wasn't a kind warning, it was a deliberate lie, crafted so I'd spend Christmas alone while everyone else celebrated together. As I sat trembling, one horrifying question echoed through my mind. How many other holidays, birthdays, or family moments had I missed because of their carefully coordinated lies? And what kind of family goes this far to pretend you don't exist? The more I stared at those bright, happy faces in Sophie's Instagram photos, the deeper the realization sank in. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. This was a pattern I had been too desperate to deny. As I scrolled through more memories online, it felt like a montage of missed chances flashing before my eyes. Birthday dinners I was told were postponed, only to see the cake and candles in photos later. Family trips that fell through, yet albums appeared with everyone smiling at the beach, everyone but me. I began piecing it all together, remembering moments I'd brushed off as bad timing or my own fault for not keeping in touch. But now it was undeniable. Meredith and Charles had been systematically excluding me for years, lying with the same effortless charm they used to host holiday parties or greet neighbors on the lawn. And every time I questioned it, they'd convinced me I was overthinking, or worse, told me that I just didn't fit in because I was too serious, too awkward, too me. Even worse was how Sophie's star power made it easy for them to sideline me. When she decided to skip college to teach yoga in Costa Rica, everyone called her brave. When I stayed up nights studying for my accounting degree, I was told I was boring. When Sophie forgot birthdays, it was cute. When I missed a call because of work, I was cold and distant. My attempts to contribute helping with chores, paying bills, supporting Dad after his surgery were invisible. Sophie's once-a-year appearances, meanwhile, were celebrated like royal visits. That day, sitting alone on my couch while the smell of burnt hot chocolate lingered in the air, I saw clearly for the first time. My family's love wasn't just conditional, it was an illusion carefully maintained for everyone's comfort but mine. And the most painful part wasn't their lies, but how long I'd believed them. The morning after I discovered the photos, my phone rang. It was Meredith, her cheerful tones slicing through the raw wound in my heart like ice. "Hi, sweetheart. Hope you had a nice, quiet Christmas. We missed you so much." I could practically hear the practiced innocence in her voice. But instead of the usual polite nods and murmured reassurances, something in me snapped. I kept my voice steady, even as my hands trembled. "Did you?" I asked coolly. Because Lily's Instagram shows everyone had a wonderful time at Sophie's house, everyone except me. The silence that followed was so complete it felt deafening, a vacuum of noise that sucked the warmth from the room. I could imagine Meredith's face, eyes darting, mind scrambling for the perfect lie. "Oh well," she began, stammering. "Sophie organized it so last minute, and you know how you can be at gatherings so quiet, always making people uncomfortable. We thought what?" I cut her off, my voice rising with years of pent-up fury. "That it would be better to lie to me, To let me spend Christmas alone while you all celebrated behind my back? My words hung heavy between us, and for the first time in my life, I didn't try to fill the silence with apologies. Meredith sighed, a sharp, irritated sound that told me exactly how she really felt. You're being dramatic, Evelyn. We were only trying to avoid awkwardness. Sophie wanted everything perfect. This is exactly why it's hard to include you, you're so sensitive. Her words stung, but they also crystallized everything I had refused to see. I wasn't part of their perfect picture, not because I wasn't trying hard enough, but because they never intended to include me at all. This was never about my quiet nature or busy work schedule. It was about control, about protecting the golden image of Sophie as the flawless daughter, while I was cast as the difficult, inconvenient shadow. That phone call didn't just break my heart. It shattered the last illusion I clung to, that my family's love was real. It became the catalyst for a truth I could no longer ignore, the spark that would soon ignite everything. As I hung up the phone, my mind was spinning with a storm of emotions. Rage, grief, betrayal, but beneath it all, a fierce clarity had taken root. I could no longer keep their secret. I wouldn't. I opened my laptop, heart pounding, and began crafting an email that would break the years of silence. I addressed it to everyone who had gathered at Sophie's table. Meredith, Charles, Sophie herself, every aunt, uncle, cousin, anyone who had been part of the lie. I've seen the photos from Christmas dinner, I began, my fingers flying across the keys. The dinner, I was told, was canceled due to an imaginary ice storm. I want you all to know exactly what you've done. I attached screenshots of Meredith's text. Stay home, everyone's doing the same, alongside the photos flooding social media of their cheerful celebration. I poured my heart into every word, recounting not only the Christmas lie, but the years of excuses, the canceled plans that were never truly canceled, and the suffocating loneliness they had forced me to endure. Before I could second-guess myself, I hit send. The responses started arriving almost immediately, each one a fresh wound. Aunt Belinda claimed they forgot to update me when plans changed, like forgetting to invite someone to dinner was a minor oversight. Uncle James insisted I was overreacting and should just let it go. Cousin Lily deleted the photos that exposed them and messaged me privately, accusing me of creating unnecessary drama. But it was Sophie's reply that cut deepest. A long, condescending email about how I never make an effort at family gatherings, how I always act miserable, and how she just wanted one perfect holiday without my negative energy. Yet nothing prepared me for Meredith and Charles's reaction. Instead of apologizing, they went on the offensive. Meredith began calling mutual friends, spinning tales that I was unstable, insisting I was making it all up. Charles emailed me a stern warning about respecting family privacy and how airing dirty laundry was shameful. Their words didn't break me. They confirmed what I had finally come to accept. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a moment of poor judgment. It was a deliberate pattern of manipulation and gaslighting. And I was done playing along. As the days passed, the backlash intensified. Meredith began showing up unannounced at my office, causing uncomfortable scenes in the lobby as she pleaded loudly with receptionists to speak with her poor, confused daughter. Sophie flooded social media with vague, self-righteous posts about toxic people and how sometimes choosing peace means letting go of negativity, posts that quickly garnered sympathy from friends and extended family who only knew the charming, curated version of them. Charles, always the quiet enforcer, sent me an ultimatum. If I didn't drop this nonsense, he would cut me out of his will, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Their attempts to guilt, shame, and intimidate only reinforced what I had finally understood. I wasn't the problem. They had spent years convincing me I was unlovable, too serious, too difficult. When the truth was, I simply wasn't willing to play the role they had scripted for me. The harder I stood my ground, the more desperate they became to paint me as unhinged. Then, just as I felt like I was standing alone against a tidal wave of lies, I received a message from an unexpected source. Rebecca, an old family friend who had once managed my parents' finances. Her words were cautious but urgent. Evelyn, I've been seeing what's happening on social media. There's something you need to know. Can we meet? I agreed immediately, curiosity and dread mingling in my chest. When I arrived at the quiet cafe downtown, Rebecca looked pale and anxious. She slid a thick manila envelope across the table. Your grandfather left you a significant inheritance, Evelyn. Nearly $300,000 meant specifically for your education and future. Your father was the trustee, but he never gave it to you. Instead, he funneled it all into Sophie's accounts, funding her yoga studios, retreats, and adventures. Her words hit like a punch. As I leafed through the documents, bank statements, transfers, old legal forms, my hands shook. Every page told the same story. The people who had made me feel like a burden had quietly stolen the very inheritance that could have set me free. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. They've lied to you for years, Evelyn. What they've done isn't just cruel, it's criminal. For the first time in my life, I felt something more powerful than rage or grief: resolve. Clutching the envelope, I left the cafe with my mind spinning faster than I could process. Every long night I'd spent working overtime, every student loan payment I'd scraped together, every moment I'd felt guilty for not giving enough to Meredith and Charles. It had all been a cruel farce. They had watched me struggle while sitting on the money my grandfather entrusted to me, using it instead to bankroll Sophie's freewheeling lifestyle. That night, I spread the documents across my kitchen table, each page a piece of a puzzle I could finally see in full. As an accountant, I knew exactly how to trace the money trail. The forged signatures, the misused power of attorney, they'd convinced me to sign at 18 under the guise of emergency medical decisions. The series of wire transfers labeled as business investments, but funding Sophie's yoga retreats in Bali and the lease on her boutique studio. It was a tapestry of betrayal meticulously planned, ruthlessly executed. I reached out to Sarah Chen, a lawyer specializing in estate and financial fraud. After reviewing the evidence, she confirmed my worst fears. This isn't a family dispute, Evelyn. It's a clear case of financial exploitation. You have every right to pursue criminal charges. But I wasn't driven by vengeance. I wanted justice, and maybe, just maybe, one last chance for them to do the right thing. I sent an email to Meredith, Charles, and Sophie, requesting a family meeting. To my surprise, they agreed immediately. Their replies were dripping with false warmth, as though they thought I was coming to beg for forgiveness. I imagined them rehearsing comforting words, planning how they'd spin their lies once more. I prepared carefully, arranging 3 identical folders on my dining table, one for each of them. Inside each was a full dossier of evidence, detailed records of the stolen inheritance, copies of the forged documents, and a letter from Sarah outlining 2 options: return every cent, sign a written confession, or face criminal charges for fraud and theft. I no longer felt like the outsider, the problem child, or the quiet burden. This time, I was in control. And for the first time, I knew they couldn't twist the truth to suit their story. When Saturday arrived, I waited in my apartment, the folders arranged neatly on the table like silent sentinels of the truth. The doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Meredith, Charles, and Sophie standing side by side. Their smiles looked strained, but their eyes gleamed with the confidence of people who believed they could still manipulate the situation. Meredith barely stepped inside before launching into her script. Evelyn, we're so glad you've come to your senses. We know you've been upset, but let's put this all behind us. I raised a hand to stop her. Without a word, I slid the 3 folders across the table. Before you say anything else, I said evenly, I suggest you read these. As they flipped through the pages, the change in the room was palpable. Charles's face turned ashen, Meredith's eyes darted wildly, and Sophie's hands began to shake. The final pages, outlining their options and the possibility of criminal charges, seemed to hit them like a slap. For the first time, they were speechless. This is ridiculous, Meredith hissed finally, her voice rising as she tried to regain control. You're blackmailing your own family? I let out a cold, humorless laugh. This isn't blackmail, it's accountability. You stole from me. For years, you lied to me and everyone else. And now, you have 2 days to decide. Return what's mine and sign these confessions, or I go to the police. Rachel has already agreed to testify. Sophie's face crumpled as she burst into tears. I didn't know, I swear, they told me it was their savings. Don't lie, I cut in sharply. You knew. The transfers were made directly into your accounts. You chose to believe the story that suited you best. Charles tried a different tactic, his tone turning stern and commanding. Think about what this will do to the family, Evelyn. What will people say? I looked each of them in the eye, my resolve unshaken. You should have thought about that before you spent years stealing from your own daughter. You have 48 hours. As they left in a panic, I knew I had finally shifted the balance of power. For the first time, they were the ones afraid of what came next, and I was ready to face whatever happened. The next 48 hours crawled by, each minute stretching on with the heavy silence of waiting. I hoped deep down that they might choose to face what they had done, to admit the truth, return what they'd stolen, and maybe, just maybe, open a door to something resembling healing. But by the time the deadline passed, it was clear. They had chosen pride over honesty. Instead of confessions or repayments, I watched as they scrambled to cover their tracks. Meredith began frantically closing bank accounts and shredding documents. Charles tried to pressure Rebecca, demanding she retract her statement. Sophie quietly deleted years of incriminating social media posts and posted cryptic updates about betrayal and family backstabbers. Their desperation only confirmed what I already knew. They would never come clean on their own. At dawn the next day, I took a deep breath, gathered my evidence, and filed official charges with the police. By the afternoon, the consequences they had feared came crashing down. I watched the news unfold from my office as law enforcement served warrants on their home, their workplaces, and Sophie's yoga studio, which was seized as an asset purchased with stolen funds. Charles was escorted out of his firm in handcuffs. Meredith was arrested in the middle of a committee meeting, her carefully constructed public persona crumbling in real time. Sophie's face appeared on local news as reporters pieced together the story of a family who had stolen a daughter's inheritance. Suddenly, the relatives who had rushed to defend them fell silent. The family group chat exploded with stunned messages as evidence became public record. Even those who once mocked me for being dramatic had to face the truth. Rebecca sent me a message. "You did the right thing. Your grandfather would be proud." As I watched their perfect image collapse, I felt no joy, only a profound sense of relief. They had spent years trying to convince me I was the problem, twisting every situation to make me doubt myself. But now the world could see what I had always felt. The truth was never on their side. For the first time in my life, I knew I was free, not just from their manipulation, but from the weight of trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it. As I look back on the storm that shattered my illusions, I realized that the greatest tragedy wasn't the stolen money or the years of lies. It was the time I spent believing I was unworthy of love. I sacrificed my dreams, silenced my voice, and molded myself into the quiet, dependable daughter, hoping that if I just tried harder, I would finally earn a seat at my family's table. But in the end, it wasn't my flaws that kept me on the outside. It was their inability to see my worth. Through this painful journey, I discovered a truth that I hope will stay with every single one of you reading or listening now. Your value is not determined by the approval of others, even if they're your family. You are not defined by the roles they assign you, the boxes they put you in, or the lies they tell you about yourself. You deserve respect, honesty, and love that doesn't come with conditions. You deserve to be surrounded by people who celebrate your existence, not tolerate it when it's convenient for them. Standing up for myself was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most liberating. In holding my family accountable, I finally learned what it means to value myself, not for what I can give, but simply for who I am. And though it hurt to let go of the fantasy of a perfect family, I discovered something far more precious: freedom. Freedom from manipulation, from guilt, from the constant feeling of not being enough. Now, I've built a life filled with friends who respect and support me, colleagues who appreciate my dedication, and a small circle of people who remind me that love doesn't have to hurt. I've learned that sometimes the family we choose can be stronger and more caring than the one we're born into, and that's okay. So to anyone who feels alone, excluded, or unloved, please know you are not alone in your pain. You are worthy of kindness and honesty, and you have the power to step away from relationships that only bring you down. Let my story be a reminder that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to stand up for your worth? How did it change you? Sharing your experience might just help someone else find the courage they need. And if you'd like more true stories that shine a light on life's hardest lessons and the incredible strength we can find within ourselves, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Together, we can create a community that values honesty, resilience, and the power of speaking our truth. Thank you for being here. Remember, you are stronger than you know, and you are never alone.